John, welcome to Campbell Conversations. We ready?
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'm ready, yeah.
Yeah, and we get to do it here in Majorca, which is great fun. I get to tie in some work with some pleasure, which is really important. But first question I've got for you is around what would John of October, November 2020 think of the last 5 years, given the journey you've been on?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think he would be pretty proud. Yeah, yep. It's hard to see that far into the future when you're coming out of addiction and entering recovery because it's scary. You don't know what it's going to look like. But 5 years in, almost 5 years in, he'd be pretty proud. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm pleased. I'm pleased for you. And I think when people learn about your story, or those that are listening that know it already, it's a very transformative story because you were clearly somebody that had a lot of potential throughout your adult life. And now I feel like we're getting to see what that potential is in a particular field that you've found that gives you what you need.
Yeah. It's when I look back at my past and look at all the mistakes I've made along the way to get myself to here. I had to go through all those lessons, all those setbacks, all those obstacles to get to where I am now. And without that, I wouldn't be who I am now. So I get asked a lot, would you change anything about all my mistakes and my errors? Not at all. Like, it's got me to where I am now, and it's shaped who I've become and who I am becoming.
How do you reflect on that period, October and November 2020, that sort of end of your addiction cycle?
It took me a while to sort of come to terms with getting over addiction because it's been such a big part of my life. I'd struggled for so many years, like 7-8 years in addiction, 15 rehabilitations. Got out the last rehab in Barcelona. It was quite a daunting task what was ahead of me. My girlfriend at the time, my wife now, the mother of my children, come back into my life and has had to start a new life, a new chapter. It's quite daunting because you just don't know what that's going to look like. Alcohol and drugs had been my oxygen for so many years, and it's my tool that I used to use to deal with life on life's terms, and I didn't have that anymore. So I'm very blessed to be where I am now, yeah, for sure.
Talk to me about how you became addicted to alcohol and drugs, because if I look back at your history, I know you served in the Special Forces, which obviously requires a level of peak performance to do so, whereas we know that alcohol and drugs typically don't lend themselves to allow somebody to operate at the level you do.
Yep. Yeah, I think I've been pretty exposed to. I've been, the chance of me becoming an addict was always a high chance. So when I look back at my childhood, I was compulsive. I identify now that I've gone through a shitload of therapy. My first, addiction was comfort eating when I was little. So I had a lot of stress going on at home. I used to see mum doing it. I didn't know what it was, but I know food made me feel better and it made me change the way I felt at the time. So as a kid, I got quite big, but then I sunk my energy into sport and exercise. And I didn't understand what it was doing then, but I do now. It was giving me a sense of purpose. It made me feel good. It allowed me to handle more stress. So exercise, comfort eating were my first addictions when I was really little. When I got to, my grandparents owned a liquor store. So ever since I can remember. And my parents ended up buying the liquor store off them, taking it over when I was 12 or 13, I think it was. So around year 5, year 6 in school. My old man, I would say he's an alcoholic. He, only he can say he was, but he definitely was a problem drinker. He was quite abusive. But everyone else in the family would drink a lot, but they could shut it off. I never had a problem with alcohol. I started drinking quite young. I think five or six.
Oh, wow. Okay, right. I was going to say, like, in Scotland, we start early, like 12, 13, like you drink down the park with your mates. Maybe not so much now, but my generation, I'm 32, like people were drinking early. Like I was in a rugby environment, so like we would drink after games on a Saturday or Sunday, or we would get to drink with the men's team if they won and stuff like that. But 5 or 6 is incredible.
So at Christmas time, so all the family together, there's like 25 of us, all the kids off my grandparents, and then everyone had 4 kids as well. So all us little kids down the bottom of the grandchildren, down the bottom of the table at Christmas dinner, lunch, we would have our little shandy glasses. So we'd be drinking Asti Riccadonna at 5 or 6. We'd only get one each meal, but I was exposed to it very young. Now, moving into when I started high school, was always working at the liquor store at my parents', so I've seen a lot of drunk people. I was around it all my life, essentially, from those young ages. But I never had a problem with it. I'd only drink the one night. I'd binge drink. It was very common in Australia, same culture as the UK. You just drink the one night and that was it. And I used to actually frown upon people who would drink multiple days, even playing footy and stuff like that, looking up to the older generation. Like, how can you do this? Like, the next day you're always on, so sick and hungover. But it wasn't until I joined the military is where I got exposed to drugs. I got exposed to day after day drinking, and it was the norm. Yeah.
The culture in the military. It's interesting, the culture within the family and general culture in Australia is obviously that binge drinking, then turning it off. Whereas in the military, it's back to back to back. Yeah. Is that related to coping with the stress of what you guys go through, or do you think there's other reasons for it?
I think Australian culture, it is boozes. And they're saying there's British culture that is boozes. When you got downtime, you booze, yeah. You always know the people who would drink of a night time, those 3-4 beers at night, and then they never function that well. But when I look at Australian culture, it's very much like that, yeah. And the military was just on a different level because young guys, I was really young when I got into Special Forces, hadn't been exposed, as I said, to drugs and that. But when you drank, it was frowned upon if you didn't drink. Yeah.
Yes, that's a big thing. I've gone through periods of elective sobriety. Haven't felt I was ever in the alcoholic bracket, but go through periods where I've been like a year, 2 years. At one point, did 900 days without, and the pressure you get from your friends or people kind of on the periphery of your friendship group, like, why are you not drinking? Do you not want to come out with us anymore? You're not fun anymore. You're being boring. There is that stigma and label around not partaking. And I think as a young man in particular, that's even harder because you're not as sure of yourself, whereas I'm extremely sure of myself now in my 30s. Like, I'm very confident, like, I'll turn up in my car, I'll enjoy myself, I'll have fun, and I'll leave when I want to. Whereas at a younger age, I think the peer pressure of have a beer, have another beer, have another beer is so hard to say no to.
Yeah, it was just normal. It was normal. Like the guys even at school in like sort of year 10, year 11, year 12 who didn't drink, they got picked on, yeah. They got their shit put on them. And
yeah, so, you're a nerd, you're a geek.
Yeah, it just weren't fun. And it allowed you to become someone you weren't. And I identified that, but I didn't really start to sort of get after it. And Jekyll and Hyde is a nickname that some people give me in the military, because who I just turned into. I was the fun guy. Party guy number one was another one. Like, this guy it goes to a new level, and people used to live vicariously through me because I was a younger.
The stories,
a young soldier coming on Monday morning, still like banged up, and this is what we did. Like, and it was, you thought it was sort of cool, yeah. But I wasn't operating at a high level. Yeah, I was doing enough to get by. Yeah.
More leads, more meetings, more quotes, more proposals, and closing a higher percentage of those. That's exactly what it's time to unlock with my sales masterclass. I've distilled down over 15 years of sales experience across B2B and B2C into some actionable lessons which you can benefit from. Clients that I've worked with one-to-one over the last 6 to 18 months have had incredible results, and it's now time for me to share with you an easier way to work with me rather than on a one-to-one basis. To get involved, hit the link in the show notes or under this description wherever you're watching this to join today's waiting list, and there's even some free goodies in there for you while you wait for the course to go live. I know you went into the Special Forces at a young age. What was that process like to make the step into the Australian Special Forces?
Yep. So I applied. I think it was when I was about 18, 19. I'd say 19. The process I went through was direct entry for Special Forces. So after 9/11 happened, they needed to raise another Special Forces unit. So they had SAS. They were based out of Perth, so they needed a unit to raise to be able to fight this, the global war on terror,
Afghanistan,
domestic counterterrorism. So they raised another unit. So what they opened it up for the rest of the army to start applying and going on a selection course to try to get in, and they just didn't have enough guys who were wanting to do it and were able to do it. So they opened up a program. I think in other countries they got this program as well. In America, so you apply. You need a high aptitude. So you need officer aptitude. I don't know how I passed that because I never finished high school.
Really?
No.
Did they make you go back and study to do that?
No. They said you've passed as officer level, but they encouraged me actually. Do you want to go Duntroon, Canberra? But you'd have to go back and finish your year 12. But because they needed officers, I guess.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'll stick to the special forces. So you needed the high aptitude. You needed high physical capacity. So basically, when I found this program, it was literally my brother had a magazine in his room, and I found it, and I was looking for what I was going to do in life. I found this sporting background. 9/11 had happened, so all that programming of war, and we've been in this for a long time. Wanted to get out of the town I was in, small town. Applied, was successfully enough to get selected, and then I knew essentially once I started that process, because I knew they make it black and white. This is everything you're going to have to do. So when we started, it was basic training, 3 months. You finish that straight onto IETs, so you're in infantry training 3 months. Finish that straight onto advanced infantry. Finish that, and then you're on a selection course with the rest of the army. In your 1 year in as a soldier.
It's like a fast track, isn't it? It really pushes you.
That's what it is, direct entry. Yeah. So it was all fast. We lost a lot of guys. They cut a lot of fat because guys. And it's always interesting when we started. The guys who were the big guys, the strong guys, the cool guys, they're all the ones who got sort of cut straight up. Yeah. Like it's the guys who are quiet, humble, have integrity, can work, don't complain, just do what they're told, follow orders. They were the guys who made it at the end. So by the end of it, out of like nearly 50 of us, 45, somewhere around that, I think there was about 15 to 16 of us at the end. So it's quite a high pass rate for what they want us to do. Yeah.
I've spoken to two guys who served in the SPS in the UK and the SAS in the UK, Lindsay Bruce and Simon Jeffries, and they said similar. It wasn't necessarily the biggest physical specimen who came in that would do well. Now, don't get me wrong, Lindsay Bruce actually did professional bodybuilding at one point, so he is a unit.
Yeah.
But it was those that had the mental perseverance to go through such a long process and so many potential pitfalls within the process that are designed to test you and test your mettle, whether it's sleep deprivation, whether it's food restriction, whether it's dehydration, whether it's psychological warfare within the discussions to try and test what you will be like when the push comes to the shove. And a phrase that we kind of spoke about together was, you bleed in training so you're less likely to die in battle.
Yeah.
And I think when you see the guys that go through that and they end up in the special forces like yourself, you really have been through the ringer before you get to the battlefield.
You have to. They got to test to make sure, see what your resolve is. Yeah, like there's no point not testing you to the point of like, okay, we haven't slept for 2 days, we haven't eaten for 2 days, now we've got to go banging the target. And it's like, nah, look, I can't do this. So you've got to be able to prove that you're capable of that. It's guys who have stamina and can just go through the ringer, cold, hungry, wet, all these things. Yeah.
We have Hell Week in the UK that they talk about. Do you have something similar in Australia?
So when you do selection, it might have changed a bit. I know they're changing the process where they're mixing SAS and commando selection together. But when I did it, essentially the first 3 days are like all the testing, pack marching, all the physical standards. Then each week is like a phase. And the last phase is the sleep and food depth. So 3 days, no food, no sleep. You're hallucinating. You're just doing task after task. You can't stay awake. And that's where you lose a lot of guys as well. But the whole process is not meant to fail you. It's meant to make you quit. So it's like,
that's right.
Can you have resolve? And they just keep testing you and testing you. Some of the things you're never going to pass, but they want to see, do you just not give up? Yeah. They'll start like a physical activity. They'll say, all right, we're not leaving here till 2 guys quit. Like, who's going to be that guy? And you don't know how long it's going to go for. It's a real mental challenge, right? So, there's a lot of testing in life where the finish line. Real testing is where
when we have a deadline, it's easier. That's completely right. When we have an end point, we have something to work towards. Whereas when it's infinite, you just have to keep going until perhaps others drop away and you're the last man standing or the last men standing.
Yeah, it's really mental. What you can go through, because your mind will start playing tricks with you. It'll start saying you're weak, you can't do it. It's like, can you knock out those sounds and noises, or as well, if you've got a good team, they can pull you through it as well. And I was very lucky that I had all the DRS guys. We're all fit, we're all young, and we all did support each other through that.
Yeah, you are in a peak performance environment there because there's so many guys that are pushing. But alongside that, you mentioned that there's a lot of alcohol consumption, potentially drug consumption within that as well. How do those two worlds tie together?
Work hard, play hard. It was literally, yeah. When I look at, so I lived in the eastern suburbs, so Coogee, Bondi area. Around that area, there's a lot of footballers, so first graders. So you would see them out, and they were very similar. And when I, sit back and you start looking at high achievers, a lot of them do push the boundaries. Yeah, it's like an outlet, or it's just part of their character. But they did. So basically, when you were going to have a session, get on it, you would have downtime. Yeah, I would. On weekends, I would push the boundaries, but where I really pushed it was on leave. So after war, after preparing for to go overseas, like you get downtime, that 1 week off to 4 weeks off or 6 weeks off. That's when I would just go bananas.
Yeah, I know you served in Afghanistan on 3 tours, all back to back. And one of the interviews I had you on, you talked about the relentless nature of tour back tour. Tour back tour, and you're like, how did you handle that mentally? You said that when you're back, you went on a tear and you're sending it and you're consuming all sorts. That maybe doesn't best prepare you to go back.
No. So it was essentially my downfall. One of my downfalls. Yeah. So what they do now is they there's not the same battles going on now and the same war, but essentially you need to decompress. So you do a tour. It's in special forces. It's different to a normal tour in a regular unit where you might sit in a patrol base for 8 months, 12 months, and you don't do a heap. Ours is very kinetic, where they're targeting individuals out in helicopters, go out in vehicles. It's very high turnover. We're doing counter narcotics with the DA, so very, very high level stuff. When you finish a tour, you're supposed to see a psychiatrist, go through tests, and then you're supposed to go home and you decompress. So before you come back on to overseas, now you got to have 12 months back in Australia or back wherever you're from, but you got to decompress, right? So what we're doing was we're going to do the psych test. They were asking us questions about what we'd been through. You'd lie, because if you told the truth, you weren't going to be able to go back on the next tour. So then you go home. You just get on it, just obliviate yourself, and then I knew that I was going back to war straight away. Yeah, so essentially, I did my first year as a commando. I think I did 290 days of it in Afghanistan. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time there, and then it essentially worked out to be 1 tour a year. So I did 3 fighting tours, and then my last tour was a permanent PSD, they call it. So I went and looked after a 3-star general. Okay. So essentially every year, just back to back, high stress environments, but you get back and you have that downtime. And I would have, if I didn't fail my drug test, I would have been doing the same thing again.
The same cycle.
Yep. The military was seeing what was happening, but the amount of guys who were probably struggling, if they said you can't go back, you got to decompress, they probably wouldn't have enough soldiers going back. Yeah, everyone was dealing with something. Yeah,
of course. These actions and environments come with a cost. Yeah. They can't not. And I understand you were actually shot in one of your first gunfights as well. How did that experience impact you?
Yeah, it's probably something which, when it happened, it shocked me a lot, and then it made me feel a little bit invincible. Yeah. Okay. So surviving that, that's probably the first moment where I understood what PTSD was. So I remember the night the incident happened. I copped around to the back, hit me in just below my top of my plate, so it didn't penetrate. But the middle of summer in Afghanistan, so high 40 degrees, hit me in the back. All the water, my water bottles and Camelback, flying down my back. I thought I'd been whacked. The scout of the team came over and we took all the kit off. He was the medic. It was like we realised that it didn't penetrate and we could see where it had struck. So I was like, wow, that was lucky. And I remember actually speaking to Mum not long after that and speaking about maybe going a bit of the religious route because of it. Yeah, how close it was.
Did your family have faith when you were growing up?
Nah, not really. No. So that night, waking up and hearing the crack, and like looking around, like we were still outfield, like we were still on operation, and looking around, and it's nighttime and we're sleeping. I'm like, I understood what PTSD, like this has scarred something in my brain, yeah. And this would happen every now and then, where I'd wake up and I'd hear that crack. Another one was I'd hear PGs going off, but you never spoke about it with anyone because it would jeopardize your next tour. So my first tour, I turned 23. So doing special operations at 23, it's quite young. It wasn't until I was into my probably fifth or sixth rehabilitation where I was for alcohol and drugs and PTSD and whatnot. My psychiatrist actually explained to me sort of what was happening with me. And he goes, like my brain wasn't even fully formed when I was, it doesn't form to like mid-20s, right?
Yeah, as a guy, it's later than girls as well, which is something we're noticing in modern
society. I didn't know that. I was 18, you're an adult. You just, everything's working. But he said, no, so your brain's still developing, even preparing for, going through the military, preparing DRS, all this exposure, all this shock, getting you ready for war, started to traumatize your brain a bit. Then you go on war, then you get shot, and then you see mates dying, and you see the brutality of war, and then you come home and your brain's supposed to be calm, and then you put alcohol and drugs in it. So there's so much stress, so much confusion, trauma, and then you repeat the cycle for 4 years.
Yeah.
And you wonder what's wrong because your brain has never recovered.
You mentioned that yourself and other guys you served with would purposefully lie to the psychiatrist because you wanted to go back on tour. Yeah. It's a difficult balance of knowing that you need to decompress, not doing so, knowing that you might not need to go back on tours or might not benefit from going back on tour as fast as possible, but there's clearly a financial incentive to do so, but also maybe a pride incentive. Like you don't want to let the team down. You don't want to let yourself down. You don't want to let the country down, because I think you're right. At that period in time, we very much felt as the UK, the US, Australia and the Commonwealth felt it was us against the terrorists. Yeah. There was a narrative, whereas people reflect on that period now and there's some different narratives coming out.
Exactly.
But I can completely understand why you would do that, but it's been damaging to do so, and it's a really challenging situation to get your head around.
Yeah, there was stigma. Yeah, I know guys who did pull the pin, or so they had problems, and there was a stigma, and I wouldn't say I did it, but they were definitely, they're not one of us senior, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, they're a bit quacky, and now I'm a bit older, 39, weak, like a bit more maturity, a bit more maturity in me, and I see the world differently. As you said, the whole narrative has all shifted, yeah, but it was just a high achieving environment where, I saw it as I've been training for a football game, but I never got to play it. And now we're playing the game. Like, I don't want to get off the field. Yeah. But we're making good money. I'm young. I thought I was handling it quite well until I wasn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's often the case with maybe addiction or high stress environments. It's fine till it's not.
Yeah,
and when it's not, it's a runaway train, and you see that collapse. And I've spoken to many guests who've gone through that sort of period where they're like, okay, I'm not in control anymore.
Yeah.
When did you feel that became the case?
So it was identified by throughout my youth. So from like 16 to around that time, I had the same girlfriend on and off a few times. She actually wanted me to get help, and there was intervention put in. It's like, you go get help or we're not going to be together. And I was in denial. No, I don't need it. She goes, Jon, like you can't stop drinking. But I was still functioning at work. That was the real first flag.
Would you be dry when you were out in Afghanistan, or would you drink when you were there?
We drank a few times, yeah. But I was pretty good there, yeah. When I went into contracting, that changed a bit. But generally, we would get sanctioned drinking, and that was after like Anzac Day, particular days like this. But not really. There were drinking going on, but it wasn't huge. No. But yeah, my girlfriend at the time identified it. I said no. And then essentially the cycle was still going until I failed a drug test. And that should have been the first real big indicator of my whole identity was being stripped away from me. I'd been a commando since I passed selection at 21, 22. Did four active tours, and then what am I? I've got nothing. Yeah.
So yeah, you're stripped of that, and it's interesting. I've spoken to a couple of rugby players recently in the pod, and when they leave rugby, they're stripped of, oh, that's Rory rugby player, that's Adam the rugby player. So they need to recreate their identity. It's the same in so many walks of life. When we have this thing that we get asked about at family parties, or we get asked about by our friends from school, it's normally the thing that underpins who we are. Often it's our career, our vocation, it's what we spend our most time on, or it's our hobby that we're maybe very good at.
Yeah.
And when that goes, your world really does get flipped on its head.
Yeah, I just had no idea what I was going to do. So I fought it for a long time.
Okay.
Went through the process of appealing it. It dragged out for a long time. Unfortunately, they said no, zero tolerance. And I had to accept it. However, I had a pretty good reputation, I'd say. Good enough that guys had vouched for me in the contracting world. And instead of getting my shit together and calming down, maybe going to therapy, finding a job which wasn't so high stressful, I went back to Afghanistan it was 6 weeks after I discharged. So I was back in Afghanistan, but contracting, this time I was doing 2 months on, 1 month off. Even more intense. And that was the big chapter, which I essentially lost that job because of drinking, the drug taking. An incident happened, and essentially lost that. So I'd lost my job as a commando. I lost my job as a contractor. I was with the Australian Embassy, looking after diplomats, and now I'd lost that. It's okay, surely this can't get any lower, but it did. Yeah.
Have you ever rubbed beef fat on your face? Sounds crazy, but that's exactly what I've been doing since January. Those that know me well know that I'm all about removing toxins from my life. Things like getting a filter for my tap water, not eating ultra-processed foods in my diet, even spraying aftershave on my clothes rather than on my skin. And that got me thinking, if I'm not spraying aftershave on my skin because of it disrupting my hormones, what on earth am I putting on when it comes to a moisturiser? So when my good friend Adam Ash and previous guest on the podcast launched No Tox, it was a no-brainer. It's made from all natural ingredients, mainly from raw honey and beef tallow, and my skin has never looked better. If you want to benefit from the tallow glow and remove toxins from your life, then hit the link in the show notes to notoxskincare.co and use the code Colin15 for 15% off. What did the rehabilitation process look like? You mentioned in the conversation 15 different rehabilitations. It took many for it to sink in and get the final result for you. What did that process look like, and why was the latter one in Barcelona successful versus the others?
So when I first started, I didn't want to, for my first rehab, I was in Bronte in Sydney. I didn't want to do it. I had an intervention from friends, and as well, when I understood I needed to do it, I was at the point where I drugged myself where I couldn't wake up without not shaking, and the anxiety. I'd drink, and after about 6 drinks it would go away. So it's like, okay, I'm in this bad. My girlfriend who I'd had for many years come back into my life as a friend. She helped me get into this rehab. I got into the rehab, and I was at the mindset of I'm different. Once I sobered out after a week and stopped the shakes and stopped the nervousness and the delirium tremens and all that, I feel pretty good. I feel like I don't have a drinking problem. That was just a moment. And I ended up leaving there, and I went to South America. Yeah, and then I was in Ibiza and many places. I did 6 months, and then went back to Australia. And then this cycle would just continue where I'd go into a rehabilitation. Generally, it would be from 4 weeks. I did do up to 3 months. I would go into it. I would either relapse in there or I'd finish the program. I would leave and I feel great. Maybe I've changed. Maybe
because you've detoxed, but
yeah, I've detoxed. I feel better. I'm exercising again. I've got clarity. I don't have the symptoms of delirium tremens and all this. I feel great. So I go thinking I can drink again safely. Maybe it's changed. And then I would repeat this. Every cycle got worse and worse to the point of I was rolling vehicles, had my license taken off me. I was caught in the gap in Sydney, going to jump off. I started self-harming. It got really dark. I was put in many psychiatric wards and put in there. And I think when I was in Melbourne, I did like 3 weeks, two or three weeks where I was in psychosis. I thought everything, newspapers were talking to me, and it was a really, really unpleasant time and dark moment of my life to be in. So that cycle went on for many years, pushed many friends away, hurt family, lying, cheating, stealing.
It's because they want you to get back to yourself. And when you're in that, I don't use this term state lightly, but when you're in that situation, that mindset where you have psychosis, you're not yourself. Yeah. And they know that, and it's painful to watch. So to watch you like that makes them try and take an action. But if you're not 100% wanting to take the action, maybe you come out of the rehab and you reintroduce alcohol on a small extent. It seems that that's not possible, but your brain is still telling you that it might be.
It's denial. It's just denial. You're not wanting to face reality. Yeah. So I got introduced to this this saying, I guess. So it's surrender. Yeah. So the whole ideology behind it is like, you got to surrender to your addiction because you can't control it. And now I'm a soldier. I was special forces when I was really young. I don't surrender. We tactically withdraw. We don't surrender. That's, that's for weak people. So I was always fighting it. I'm bigger than this. And essentially, like, I wasn't able to get clean and sober until I surrendered properly and I got into a recovery plan. But as you said, when the family are watching and, they're trying to help and all that, there's only so much they can do. Yeah. And then they have to let you sink and you need to hit rock bottom. You've got to go through it. I understand that now. And when I try and help people with this, it's like, this will keep getting worse until you're ready. And you've got to want it. I thought I wanted it. I was never showing it until I was in Barcelona, handcuffed to the bed, had shit myself in psychosis, thought a hit had been put on me, and I was just gone absolutely crazy. And that's when I was, this is life. Like, I can't live like this.
That surrender word is a really interesting term because I had a conversation with a good friend of mine on the podcast called Adam Ash, and he was speaking about a process called be, do, have. So in order to have and achieve something, we must be that person first. We must do the things that person would do, and then we'll have the things that person would have. So people can do it with a successful businessman, a Hyrox athlete. They can do it with a podcaster. You can do it with a YouTuber. You can do it with a politician. Whatever you want to be, you must be that person intrinsically first. Yeah. Then you will do the habits and the behaviors and the routines that are in alignment with that person, and then you will have the exterior and the possessions and the outputs of that type of person. You were surrendering your old identity as somebody that could drink. Yeah. You were surrendering that old identity as somebody that, I can do this as part of my lifestyle where I'm a commando, I'm a special forces operator, I'm a contractor. It wasn't compatible for you, Jon, but once you surrendered, I guess, from maybe thinking that it was possible, that's when you can seek change. So I think it's an interesting thing for people to consider, like, who are you and what do you stand for and what does that person do, and then the results will come down the line, rather than thinking I'm going to do these things first and become that person. Sometimes you have to become before you get there. Yeah,
for sure, man. And then when I started therapy here, and my wife, girlfriend back then, or we weren't really together because I'd stopped up so many times. She found someone who was an addict himself. He was a therapist, so he had like 15 years time up, I believe, in Majorca. He lives here, and I started working with him. And I had to go through this whole process of who am I and why do I do the things I did. Yeah, so I was still living as I was a commander. I can still do all these things, but I wasn't anymore. Like, I'd lost Jon. Yeah, so I had to come back and I had to build my base and be okay with who I am before I could even start thinking I was in the future. But I was living in the past.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most helpful things for somebody looking to make a change in the results they get in their life to address who they are at their very core. Because if you don't have that identity in alignment, then it's very hard to stick to those things. Like, people use it with smoking all the time. If somebody says, I'm trying to quit smoking, rather than I'm not a smoker, then after a night out, if they're having a few pints, they will end up in the smoking area smoking a dart. And you're like, okay, you need to intrinsically shift in order to get that result. And it'll be the same for alcoholism. It's the same for somebody trying to lose weight. It's the same for somebody trying to progress in their career. It's the same for somebody trying to study for exams. You must change intrinsically to get the result off the back end. Otherwise, your change is only temporary and it won't last. It won't stand up to the rigors and the push and the pull of your environment around you.
Yeah. So when I started doing AA and NA, that was hard for me because I'm like, I've seen these in the movies. Like, I'm not one of these people. And I'd be in there, and one of the first things they do, right, is they say, "Hi, for example, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic." Right? I'm not an alcoholic.
You didn't want to say that.
No, I didn't want to identify as it or go to an NA meeting. I'm John, I'm an addict. And I wouldn't say it. And then I started to say it, but it never felt right because I still had this idea that I could still go and use safely. Yeah. Now, like I made my social media, it's got sobriety in it. As soon as I started owning it and in this last process of recovery, I want to look at 5 years now, I'm happy to say I'm an addict because that was my problem because I would forget that I was an addict and addicts can't pick up. So I just needed to be open with it. Everyone knows if anyone Googles me, you're going to see that I'm in sobriety. I own it. Yeah. But that's the problem is before I didn't know if I was, maybe I should still dabble in it. Now addicts can't drink or take drugs. It's just they can't.
I think it's such a helpful theme for people like yourself to articulate in many previous guests because somebody listening who's wanting that shift and to achieve that difference in result, whatever it's in, whether it's to escape from a problem or whether it's to get to a better place, sometimes the two go hand in hand, then it's just recognizing that you have to embrace this new person that you've got to become, and then you line up the behaviors, the habits, the routines that sit within that. Yeah. And then down the line, we become that guy and we're in a better spot than we were before. So like you say, your identity is through fitness and sobriety in your Instagram handle. You're happily owning that label and you're like, that's me. And then you live in alignment with that. And guess what? The results that we see you achieving, and we'll definitely get onto in today's discussion, are naturally going to flow from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It just sets me up, and I'm being authentic then too. Yeah, that's me. I'm owning it, and then just like we've all got skeletons in the closet. Like I put my skeletons out. Yeah, there are still a few, but I've got to work through them in therapy at a later stage. But yeah, it's more authentic, and I'm out there to be seen, and it is quite vulnerable as well, but it allows me to keep doing this.
Yeah, of course. When did Hyrox come about? Because I got introduced to you through one of your clients, Christian Hill. Yeah. Absolutely great guy back in Scotland who works in the fitness industry. And he said, you've got to speak to Jon. He's an absolute savage at Hyrox, and he's got a great story as well. Now, we've been in a lot of the great story, but let's get into the Hyrox side of things. Yeah,
so I'd been living here in Majorca, what was it, probably like a year or so. So this is in COVID. There weren't a lot of gyms open. There weren't a lot of stuff happening, right? So I remember the gym at the...
I still think that's one of the maddest things about that lockdown period. They closed the health and the fitness facilities, so tanked everyone's mental health, tanked everyone's physical, or didn't tank it, but sabotaged people's physical health when, as we found down the line, one of the biggest challenges with people catching that disease was obesity or ill health. Yeah. Let's tackle it at source.
Yeah, it just made no sense, right? And it's such a crazy time, and when we're telling our kids about it in the future, like who knows what the future holds for us, and what other pandemics and incidents are going to be out there. But I've been a year sober, and my whole life I'd been a high achiever in sport and these types of things. So I wanted to compete in something. I wanted to undertake some challenge. I already knew that exercise and sport, I used it as a tool in my recovery journey. It's not the whole tool, but it's part of the process. So I wanted to compete. So I started doing jiu-jitsu. I wasn't allowed to box or kickbox because of the aggression. My therapist said it's not a good idea. We want to keep your nervous system calm and the cortisol.
And jiu-jitsu is more controlled than, say, striking.
Yeah. It's more like chess, I guess.
It's really technical, isn't it?
It's technical, and it's more technical. So it's a lot more slower pace. You can do that. So I was doing that. So did that for like 6 months. I'm like, okay, I want to compete. I want to challenge myself. So we're in a gym. We're in gis. We're wearing masks, sweating in each other's faces. Masks would fall off. The managers would come in and say, masks up. And like, this is crazy. Yeah, this is ridiculous. So there's no competitions because of COVID. And yet it made no sense. We're sweating in each other's eyes, but we can't have a comp. So I'd found at the gym, it was written on the wall. There was a workout, and I read it, and I was like, this looks bloody tough. This reminds me of the military. to run, to pull something, to run, to push something, to run, to jump, to throw. Like this is like military.
You had a javelin background as well, so the throwing must have got you excited.
Yeah. Well, because the ski erg, I'm like, okay, I can do. Oh, of course, yeah. So I'm like, and then wall balls. So I'm like, this is tough. And I was like, did the maths. I'm like, this is over an hour. Like, this would be good for me. But I wasn't running at that stage. I had knee surgery a couple of years before. I was told I needed another surgery before I was able to run. So I went home and I was speaking to my wife. We're married at this stage. I'm like, I want to do this comp. I'm like, it's called Hyrox. And there'd been a few there's only been a few in Spain, but I found one in Vienna, and I was like, this is 3 months away. I said, we'll go on a family vacation. My daughter was maybe like 6 months at this stage. I said, I think I could be good at it, but I need to see if I can run. So I taught myself, and I started looking at all the other the sort of elite athletes. It was only just really kicking off at a big stage. So I found super athletes, and I was looking at what they were doing. So I started writing my own programming, taught myself that, and then started running. And then I progressively overloaded my running, and I was like, hey, I can run. I can do this because of my years, that year of strength training, lifting weights, doing jiu-jitsu. I just allowed myself to be able to handle the stress of my knee. Yeah. So started running, did the program, went to Vienna and competed, and it was super tough. I went straight into the pro, which is the harder, the bigger weights.
Heavier weights, yeah.
Yeah. People were saying, no, do the open, which is the lighter weights. Like, no, this has got to be a challenge. So I did the race. I ended up with a 67-minute, and at that stage, sleds were really, really heavy compared to what they are now. And I looked at the other top athletes and looked back to what their times were when they started, and I seen that I was ahead of them. Like, okay, I think I'm going to be good at this. And after that race, I said to my wife, I'm going to put 6 months into this for the off season. Taught myself. I had built an aerobic base, so I'd never had an aerobic base. I started running big kilometers. Got to like a long run, 20 Ks, and then did the next race 6 months later, and then ran a 60-minute. And then that put me in the top guys. 4 races later, so my fourth race, I went elite, and I've been there since. This is my 4th year in elites now.
What was the biggest difference then between the first race and getting to the elites? You mentioned cardiovascular fitness and aerobic base. How did you build that up?
Long runs. Yeah, I was only doing intervals because I didn't really understand what I was doing. Intervals Monday, I'd go to the gym and do ski erg and row and sled push. Wednesday, I'd do like an assault bike session. Thursday, it was just high intensity. The sessions would go for 30, 45 minutes. The race is an hour. So if you're on a race for an hour, you need to be able to go for 2 to 3 hours easy, yeah, at an easy pace. So I just started running longer mileage, time on the bike, just started building an aerobic base, and that's what you need for this sport because it's an endurance event.
Do you think that's a misconception with Hyrox? Because you see people do like a 45-minute class.
Yeah.
In preparation for a race that takes over an hour for most people.
Most people do an hour 45 is double,
right.
Two times that. So it's becoming more common knowledge, but people still think it's a high intensity event. It is, but it's endurance. So there's not many people who are running less than 60, like us elites are. But for everyone else, it's the average time now is 80 odd minutes. So that's like it's a long event, yeah. So I tell people like classes are good aerobic, stimulus, good, like sharing time with your teammates or friends or whatnot. But if you ever get really good at this, you need a big aerobic base, and your sessions need to be 60 to 90 minutes, and you need to be doing 2 or 3 of those a week and a longer session to be able to have that aerobic base. But now the sport's evolved so much. There's a lot of triathletes coming in. They don't need to do that so much, right? I had to do that to get my
because you came from a strength background and a throwing background.
Yeah.
The area for you to work on was not necessarily the ski erg or the wall balls. It was the capacity to run fast in those sprints.
Yeah. I had the strength, so my stations were always good to start with. Lunging, always been good at it, but running and keeping that pace high enough, like I just didn't have the capacity to do that. Over the years, I've just got better and better, just put more exposure. But and it really depends on where you're coming from.
Yeah. What does a week training look like? Interestingly enough, we're recording on a Monday, so maybe we can work our way through.
Yeah, well, this week is, because I compete in the first major this week, it's a little bit different.
Let's do a standard week.
Let's do a standard week. So Monday morning will always be a running hard session, so it'll either be threshold work or some faster work, but it's generally in the range of 60 to 75 minutes. And then in the later in that morning will be strength. So I used to do a lot of strength. I don't anymore. Hyrox is, you just need to be strong enough. I luckily have the attributes, so I don't need a heap of strength. So that's 30 to 45 minutes. And then I'd go straight into a conditioning session, and that's anywhere from 60 to 80, maybe sometimes 90.
Big training day on a Monday.
They're big days, yeah. So they're high stimulus days. So in the conditioning session, it's always like a bit of running into ski erg, into the push, into running, into burpees. So I do Hyrox circuits, I guess, and I just repeat that stimulus, but it's hard. Yeah, it's almost like race pace, or sort of one level down, one gear under. So because Hyrox is a threshold race, you need to get time at threshold, and us top guys are doing 3 to 4 hours a week at threshold, a lot. Yeah, because it's the demands of the race.
Yeah, I've heard you say before the running during that is compromised running.
Yeah,
and people need to recognize the difference between your run in the morning where you're just running versus compromised running where there's wall balls and ski erg and activities added in alongside that, because your legs need to know that what this is going to feel like in race day. Yeah,
because there's blood transfer. So you might be on the ski erg, your heart rate gets through high because you're vertical, and then you go to run, and the wind, like the lungs are burning so much, can't get enough air, and then you start pushing the sled. And then they fill up with blood, and you can hardly move them, and you feel like a Gumby running it, and then you got to learn to run that out. Sled pull the same, so you got to learn to run into it, run out of it, because it's compromised. Yeah, so it's all you fill your body with lactate, or that muscle group with lactate, and then you run out. And the more you do this, the more exposure you get to feeling or being more comfortable. But otherwise you'd see high level runners come into it, and then they'll just kill it. Yeah, most like 200, 400 runners, 800 runners can be strong. They should be able to get through the stations, but they can't. I think compromised running is a skill, and you have to train it accordingly with intensity and progressively overload.
It's probably the mind and the body, isn't it? It's knowing what it feels like and being able to handle it, but it's also mentally being like, this is going to be like this, and I've been here before. And the whole phrase that I gave, we bleed in training so we don't die in battle, is a case of sometimes your mind needs to have experienced a level of pressure. So there's particular public speaking events that I've given recently. Now that I've moved full-time into sales coaching, where I'm speaking to an audience, I'm way calmer now in front of 40 people than I was in front of 20 people the time before, than I'm in front of 80 people. And then the biggest crowd that I've spoken in front of, over 100 people in a big auditorium, I was like, okay, I feel fine because I've done the reps beforehand.
You got to desensitize yourself, and it's only right exposure. You got to know, like, most people will panic. It's like, oh, there's something wrong, like my heart rate, I can't breathe. And like when you get into your breathing, like you calm yourself in mind. Like the mind will play tricks on you. Yeah? But if you've walked into the den and you've been exposed to this before, it's not going to scare you so much. Yeah, it's very similar. But there are some adaptations you need to be able to run lactate out. Like that is a skill, and like it's a process which happens when like especially the 100 meters of lunges, then you run. Like there is
the quad pump's insane.
It's tough, yeah. And I've done a selection course. I've done some hard things in my life. This Hyrox race is super tough. Yeah, it's very tough.
My journey into self-employment recently and growing the podcast has been fueled by Newtonic, and so can your ventures too. A caffeine-based drink, but with so much more nootropics and other adaptogens in there to really fuel your focus and your performance. I've been drinking the drink since they got released back in 2023, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. If you want to fuel your focus and kick on in whatever your pursuit is, whether it's podcasting like me, whether it's sales coaching, whatever it is you're turning your hand to, this will fuel your gains. Hit the link in the show notes for newtonic.com and use the code Colin10 for 10% off your first order. Talk to me about the rest of the week then. That Monday's hard. Let's go into Tuesday.
Tuesdays will be easy day, so it's basically a bike ride. I used to run as well, so I'd do brick sessions. I'd ride and then go into a run. Because I've developed a bit of an Achilles injury, I've had to reduce my volume. So my running volume is around 50 to 60 Ks a week now.
I heard you had a calf rupture as well a couple of times too.
When I first started running, Yeah, when I first started, that happened in my first season essentially. Yeah, just because I had no running background. I was a thrower. I had power. In the military, we ran, but I was nowhere near at this level. I just had enough to get by. Yeah. So Tuesday's easy day. So it's like a ride and some Achilles strength. So sometimes still a run. I would like to bring that back in the future, but I just can't now with the load on my Achilles. Wednesday is a repeat of Monday. Just a little variant in there. Thursday will be a bike ride, maybe some strength as well, but it's very easy. Friday might be an easy run with some faster stuff. And then Saturday is either a repeat of Monday or it's when I do a long run and then do maybe a little circuit after.
How long a run are we talking, John? Like really, really long compared to what you're going to run in a Hyrox race?
It'd be 90 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll cover on an easy pace. I'll cover nearly 20, a half marathon. Yeah. When I run faster, yeah, I can cover like 23, 24. So I do want to get up to hour 45.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I work off time, not necessarily distance. Yeah.
Okay. But your distance within that time will be far longer than the average runner. So
yeah,
it's really showing that if you're going to, it's 8K in Hyrox, isn't it? So
8.7.
8.7, yeah. So, but you're running more than double that.
It's your insurance
policy
that you can actually handle the demands of the race.
It's funny because obviously I have a number of friends that have run marathons and it's only once or twice that they will actually run 26 miles in preparation for a marathon. But if we're looking at your methodology there, they'd almost need to run beyond that to be ready for running that race.
Yeah, I think so. Hyrox is still growing a lot, and there's all these different CrossFit come in with their programming, and then you got runners, triathletes. We're still working this shit out. And for me, because I don't have a running background, I have to use running principles. This could change in the future. I know some other guys through the triathlete background, like some of them run 30 Ks a week, 30, 40 Ks. I was like, that's not enough. How do you do that? Because they've done 15 years of running. Like, I don't necessarily have that. But yeah, the long run is your insurance policy to say, no, you can handle it for sure.
With all of that training, what does your recovery look like?
Now, I could never have done that season one. It's too much. I was doing 3 hard sessions a week. And then year 2, year 3, year 4, I've been able to add more because I can handle it. My recovery is pretty good now. Yeah. I can handle a lot. But it took me a while to get to this level.
What are the pillars of your recovery then you rely on that you would advocate somebody who's looking to move to your level of training or even work towards it? Yeah. What do they need to be doing away from the gym, away from the pavements, away from the bike?
So I'm probably not the best example to ask because I've got 2 small kids. And it was only 2 weeks ago, I think it was, where I started sleeping in a room of my own now when I'm getting close to race. So my wife is doing the heavy lifting with the kids at nighttime.
That support network's so important.
Yeah. So all through
the behind the scenes stuff, isn't it?
I couldn't do it, man. Like all through summer, I was having my, so we're still co-sleeping. I was taking my daughters on the baby Monday, Wednesday, Saturday night. So my hard nights, because I can't sleep well, I might get 5-6 hours of sleep. That's literally it. I don't sleep well, so I can look after the kid then. But there's a risk of me getting sick in those times, which has happened a few times. So in a perfect world, sleep is hugely important. Nutrition is hugely important. The first couple of seasons, I really had no idea what I was doing nutrition-wise. I was eating like a bodybuilder because that's just all I knew. I was having 250 grams of carbs a day and doing all this work, and I was ripped, but I just didn't have and I was still at a high level. I was still elite at that stage, but I wasn't fueling anywhere near appropriately. And I was getting sick. I was tired a lot. I couldn't adapt properly.
The calorie expenditure from your runs, your conditioning, even your weightlifting with the muscle mass you've got existing to maintain, it must be so high.
Yeah, like I'd say around 5,000 a day.
Yeah.
And you can put it up a little bit. I got a nutritionist for a while because I needed to optimize this. The sport is getting serious now. Sponsorships involved. Like you can make a living out of this. So I got a nutritionist. I really sort of got familiar with the type of foods and the calories I was actually needing. So now I've learnt all that. But yeah, the bigger one, nutrition and sleep. And hard days hard, easy days easy. The mistake is now, and even when I get athletes and I see people, when I watch, either on social media following people, when they're just back day after day, back to back hard sessions, it's too much. Yeah, it's way too much. You need to tackle this as a endurance athlete. This is not CrossFit where they do high intensity a lot of the time, but their sessions are short. We've got big sessions, so you need those easy days so you can go hard on the hard days. Yeah,
it's good you recognise that. With the injury niggles you had, like the calf rupture, like some of the stuff with your Achilles, what are the sorts of prehab or rehab that you have around those?
So when I did the calf, I had no idea what I was doing. I just got recovered and I was seeing a physio, and I didn't implement anything. I just assumed it would just be more tolerant. I didn't introduce calf exercises. I was just going with the flow. Like I'm stronger now. I've Wolverine. I've healed. I can just keep going. Now that I've got this Achilles issue, I went through it for 6-7 months. When I'd wake up in the morning, like if an intruder came in the house, I wouldn't have been able to run after him. I had to walk backwards for the first 5-10 minutes of getting up, because I couldn't push my foot forward. It was excruciating. And then I'd be up for a little bit, and then I'd go run, and I'd hobble for the first 2Ks, and then it warms up and it goes away. So I battled this for so long. It wasn't until after World Champs where it was to the point it was so swollen I couldn't put a shoe on without it hurting. I couldn't walk around without limping. Where I got the help of a physio back in Australia. Started working with him. Now I've got it back, so it's like nearly 3 months. I'm not pain-free, but I'm so much better to where I was. So I needed to think more like a runner. Yeah, so I started doing isometrics, following the direction of physios, isometrics. Every morning I'm doing calf raises. I do 2 sessions a week now, which go for about 30 minutes, where I'm doing Achilles and calf exercises. So essentially I want to turn my feet into springboards. I had no idea about that before. I was just strong legs just from running and just squatting and deadlifting and lunging. But this is really, really important. So that's the only thing I really has been incorporated into my program. And I should say mobility as well. So now that I'm racing 2 times, I'll be doing singles and doubles in elite racing this season. When I competed in Chicago, when I did the doubles race with Graham, there was a 50-50 chance I was going to tear my hammies or something in my glute or my groin. I could not. My legs were so buggered just from not having the mobility. So I started working with a strength coach here. He programmed for me so I don't lift heavy anymore, and I'm doing mobility 3 times a week.
It's recognizing what you need to work on, and your base from years and years of training probably gives you the strength to do what you need to do with the weights that are involved at Hyrox.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing that I'm good at this, so I need to assign more energy to this.
Yeah.
And it's easier to maintain strength than it is to build strength. So you're building strength in particular areas, whereas your squat and your deadlift are always pretty good. Your wall ball throw is pretty good. Your sled push is probably pretty good. It's a case of, right, I need to work on these particular areas to make sure that I'm robust enough to really go for it.
Yeah, that was exactly it. Like I was still seeing it with the mindset of like, I need to be as strong as I can to hold myself together so I don't fall apart in the race. And it took Rob, who's coaching me now, is like an outside set of eyes, who's more experienced, who's been doing this a lot longer than me. Like, you're strong enough. Like you've got a good base strength. You don't need any more.
That second set of eyes is so helpful sometimes.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, okay. So tell me more. And then I said, mate, can you program for me? Yeah. So when I looked at it, I was like, this is not enough. He's like, this will be enough. And like, lo and behold, like I'm feeling way better. My nervous system is not so stressed. But you need to understand, I've got years and years of lifting. I'm nearly 39. So all through the military, I was pushing pig. Like I was squatting a lot. I've got a lot of built muscle from years.
Lean muscle tissue that's hard to shed. If you're eating enough protein, it's going to stay.
Yeah, a lot of people will contact me and they're like, you don't do much strength. Like, how do you stay big? I did the work when I was young and all my adulthood, except in addiction, I did the reps. Yeah, so it's hard to get rid of. Yeah.
You mentioned Graham Halliday there. Many of the Scottish listeners listening will be nodding on. They know all about Graham and Elation Fitness and everything he's built in Glasgow. What's been the highlight of your racing career? And I guess there's maybe one that you would share together too.
When we won the age group world champs this year, so that is pretty cool in itself. It is an age group, but me and Graham both been elites now for the last 3 seasons together. He's got to get a fast time to get back in for this season, which I'm sure he can. He's definitely got the right mindset and tenacity and work ethic to do it. But so the world champs, that was a huge achievement. But we're going for top 3. We want a podium at the elite doubles this season, and our first race will be this Saturday, the day after my solo race.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
What does the recovery look like between racing the individual and then racing the double?
That's a really good question. This will be the first time that I'm going to be incorporating an ice bath. I trialled it on the weekend past to see how it would go. It seems to work okay. I've always been careful of doing cold after training because of the blunting, the adaptation.
That's right. Yeah, Huberman spoke about that, and a lot of people were shocked because they see a lot of maybe footballers or rugby players jump in the ice bath afterwards, but they're jumping in it after a match, not to blunt the adaptation, because they're not looking to adapt. They're just looking to recover.
They're already adapted. They've already done the work.
That's right.
Yeah. So I had the mindset of that as like, I'm not going to do it because I want the adaptation. I want that stress. Now it's different. Now I need to be able to move. I need to be able to squat. As I said before, in World Champs, when I did the doubles with Graham, like I couldn't. I did like 10 wall balls. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get down. So Graham, Paul Vega had to do.
He carried the load for that one.
I can't get narrow. Like I can't get down, mate. I can't. Like I'm done. So I'll be doing cold plunge, eating well. I've got boots now. Someone sent me some boots, so I'll be using those. Getting up early, getting on the bike. I need to clear those legs. Now, I think for me, everyone's a little bit different, but I'm always worse, I think, in general, 2 to 3 days after a race. The day after, I think I've been okay. It's always that day 2, day 3, where I can't.
Delayed onset of muscle soreness typically when it's a strain is later.
Yeah, so like sitting on the toilet's hard, walking downstairs is hard on that day 2, day 3, and then it gets easier. Day 1 is still stiff, but so I'll be getting up early. Hopefully it's not going to be too bad. As I said, the boots, got the ice bath. We do race at night time, but the night after a race is so hard to sleep. Not many athletes get to sleep. It'd be good if we raced earlier in the day, but the men will be racing late at night. And then if we get drug tested, then that's delaying it. That's more hours. We'll be at the venue. So by the time I get home, it could be 11 o'clock. Then I've got an ice bath. Then I've got to somehow sleep and then got to get up. I do have to 7 o'clock the following night. But if anyone does follow me, like I get up at 5 a.m., 4:35. When you're in that routine, you can't sleep in.
Circadian rhythms. You're just round and round and round.
Yeah, mine is so hardwired that I just wake up at 5. So I will be trialing. I have been trialing some melatonin. I can use that. It doesn't seem to make me too groggy, so I'll probably use some of that. I just need to be careful with the dose. But yeah, just eating is really important. I never, because after a race, it's so stressful. It's like you've been hit by a car. And I never could eat because
your gut's in fight or flight. A lot of people don't understand that after a period, and even if somebody's going through a long period of dieting and they get really lean, sometimes when they reintroduce larger meals or they have like quote unquote cheat meals or blowouts, their gut actually really does not handle it well.
Yeah. So, and especially after such a high stress event. So I never could eat. But so what I do now is I have like liquid calories. I get carbs, just drink that straight away. Got the fruit,
get some glucose in.
I'll always the apples out. I eat that. Grab the bars. So I aim for about 1,500 to 2,000 calories post race, and to get that in. But before, I was never doing it. My first couple of seasons, but I'd never had to race the next day. So now it's the game is changing. Yeah.
One of the final questions I've got for you, Jon, before I ask for where the listeners can find you. There's been such a big change over the last 5 years. You've found this wonderful vehicle of Hyrox to really push yourself. You've got sober. You've had your 2 kids. What would success look like for the next 5 years?
Success would be continuing sobriety. I need to respect that and understand that at any moment I could relapse, and if I'm not cognizant of that, people relapse all the time. If I don't have that as a priority, I lose everything. And when you relapse in general, But addiction is progressive. It doesn't get better; it gets worse. So you can spiral quickly, and it can become fatal very quickly. So success would be another 5 years of sobriety. I don't know if I'll be competing in 5 years. That puts me like 44, 45. The way the sport's heading, it could be a little bit old, but definitely still being active in some form. Like Hyrox identify as a Hyrox athlete now. I was still hanging on to the idea of, doing different things, but Hyrox has been good for me and the growth in the world so far. So I need to hold on to that. So doing Hyrox at some level, maybe with my wife or, as a veteran. And another form of success would be I've started doing my counselling diploma to help people. When I first started my social media, the idea was I was going to help coach people through addiction. And I started that, and it wasn't that successful. And doing online work, it's hard. Face-to-face is so much better when you're interacting with someone. And what I found was I just wasn't having success. I'm like, you know what? Like I do have a lot of field knowledge, but I need to get more academic knowledge behind me. So I've started that process. It's very hard when you're training like I am. I'm still coaching because I need the money. I pick up my daughters from school. I take them to school. Like I don't have a lot of spare time. So to get back and finish that so I can head more in the direction of that. Because long term, I think I can have an impact on the world much more than being an athlete.
I definitely think so. And I think I think the dual expertise you bring is very attractive for people who realise that fitness can be a vehicle away from addiction, or it can be a pillar of their recovery. So your story combined with your knowledge plus some of this expertise that you'll continue to develop through the counselling qualification, I think will be a wonderful combination. Yeah.
Because I see people, what people do is they might have an addiction problem and then they sink their teeth into exercise or sport and they replace the witch for the bitch. So they put down their substances, gambling, sex, alcohol, drugs, and then they go all exercise. And now the problem with that is when you remove the exercise, there's a huge problem. They just go back to the addiction. So I was getting people who were like, I'm so motivated to make change, but it's all they had. And I was giving them tools and speaking to them every week and trying to help them through this, but it wasn't enough. And I seen it didn't work. So I'm like, I need to evolve this. I need to be able to widen my knowledge and bring other people on board to be able to do something which is going to be...
It's an additional pillar, isn't it, that they can rely on?
Yeah. You can't just build your foundation of sport. It's like me, if I just did sport, like I did the work of who I am and I know my triggers. I know what I've got to do to stay level, but it's a tool. It's not your base. Yeah. And that's the problem where you're just trying to, your sport and exercise are holding you up. But that drops, you got no foundation and your house falls. So I identified that. I stopped doing that. I still help people, but not at the same level. And it's to get this qualification. So that would be huge for me.
Yeah, John, I love that, and I'm amazed to see the journey you've been on the last 5 years. I'm excited to see the next 5, and fingers crossed that you've got some massive races and results coming up as well. If the listeners want to continue the conversation with you, where should they head towards? Yeah,
so I'm pretty much just on Instagram, Jon Wynn Fitness and Sobriety. I was doing, I think, there is Facebook there. It just moves the information across. But that's pretty much where I am now. I will look at evolving this when I get more time in the years to come, when I'm not probably doing an elite athlete, still chasing this dream at 39. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I do my best to get back to people. So yeah.
Amazing, John. That'll be linked in the show notes. Thank you so much to you.
Thanks very much for having me.
And thank you to the listeners. I'll be back to speak to you again very, very soon.